of the Fairfield Planning Commission of January 12, 2022. Mr. Feinstein, may we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Cruzen. She does not appear to be with us right now.
I'm letting her in right now.
Oh, she is here. Excellent. Okay. All right. And Commissioner Cruzen, if you can hear us, we're starting the roll call, and you're the first name I'm calling. So
present.
Commissioner Cruzen is present. Commissioner Evans let me know just a little while ago that she had a family matter come up, so she will not be in attendance tonight. Commissioner McDonald? Commissioner McDonald, you're on mute. We see you.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I was mute. Thank you. Yeah, I'm here.
There, we'll take that as a present. Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Warblum?
Present.
Vice Chairperson Childs?
Present.
And Chairperson Matthews?
Present. Commissioner McDonald, may we ask you to lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely. Please stand. Fellow commissioners, staff, and those in attendance, please join me in our salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
The flag
of the United States
of America
and
and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible,
with
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to read some basic information about providing public comments. Persons wishing to address the Planning Commission on subjects not on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission, provided that no action may be taken on off-agenda items except as authorized by law. Off-agenda items from the public will be taken under consideration without discussion by the Commission and may be referred to staff. Comments will be accepted via Zoom. Public information for the public. When joining via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature or press *9 on your phone to request to speak. You will be called on by name and will have 3 minutes to speak. The next item is approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda, Mr. Feinstein?
So there are no changes to the agenda, but I do want to note, and this was included as a part of your staff report for tonight, that item B, Midway Meadows, it was continued from our last meeting. The applicant has asked that it be continued for one more meeting so that they can continue to evaluate and discuss with staff some of the proposed conditions of approval. So item B, with your permission, will continue until our next meeting on the the 12th. That would be the
26th.
January 26th is when we would be continuing that item too.
Very good. May I please have a motion to accept the agenda?
I make a motion that we accept the meeting agenda.
I second it.
Very good. It's been moved and second. We will vote via roll call. Mr. Feinstein?
Yes. Commissioner Cruzen?
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Warblum?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Childs?
Affirmative.
And Chairperson Matthews?
Yes. Okay, now we're moving into public comments. This is a time for the public to speak on items not on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. Items from the public that are not part of the agenda will be taken under consideration without discussion or action by the Commission except as authorized by law and may be referred to staff. I will now open the public comment period via Zoom. Are there any comments from the public? Therefore, we will now close the public comment period. The next item is relating to scheduled matters. For each agendized item, there will be a presentation by city staff. For items that involve applicant requests, I will ask the applicant to address the commission if they so desire. Then I will open the meeting to public hearing via Zoom. I will close public hearing after all comments have been provided and after all of our questions regarding the testimony during the public hearing have been answered. After the public hearing is closed, the Planning Commission will deliberate on the items and may have additional questions of staff. We cannot take additional testimony or questions from the public after the hearing is closed. The Commission will then vote on the item. Item A is a hearing requested by Kaylee Slover on behalf of Dutch Brothers Fairfield, Inc. to develop a 2,700 square foot retail and food service building with an associated drive-through off of Travis Boulevard. The staff person is David Christie. David, you can take it over from here, and welcome. Mute.
Hello, thank you very much. I am going to share my screen and start the presentation. All right, so the project is for a Dutch Brothers Coffee at Travis Boulevard. This would be Design Review 2021-019, Environmental Review 2021-044, and Use Permit 2021-016 for Resolution 2022-01. The location, the site is a 0.8 acre lot off Travis Boulevard before the Dollar Tree on Travis Boulevard between Oliver Road and Holiday Lane. The existing use of the site is vacant and it has a zoning designation of community commercial. To provide some context, the project site is surrounded on all sides by the community commercial zone. It is surrounded to the north by the existing Dollar Tree, to the east by the California Highway Patrol, to the south by Travis Boulevard and the Rallies Supermarket and Shopping Center, and to the west by a Taco Bell and McDonald's. To provide an overview, as was described previously, the use will be a drive-through coffee shop and retail space, at which time the precise tenant of that retail space is unknown. It will be one building totaling 2,700 square feet and would be 24 feet tall. 24 parking spaces would be provided, along with enhanced landscaping with bioretention basins. At present, there is a reciprocal access agreement and an easement with the existing Dollar Tree. And as part of the project, there is going to be a conditional use permit for drive-through sales with food service use. Here's the site plan. As you can see, there is an existing drive aisle that connects Travis Boulevard with the Dollar Tree. The 24 parking spaces would be along this drive aisle. The Dutch Brothers and retail tenant would be toward the front of the site, and the queue would have the capacity for 23 separate cars separated into 2 lanes. There would be 2 bioretention basins, one of which would be between the existing drive aisle, and the drive-through queue. The second would be between the queue and Travis Boulevard. There would also be a trash enclosure that would connect to the drive aisle. In terms of landscaping, the landscaping would meet all the requirements of the community commercial zone. As one of the conditions would be for a beautification of the bioretention basin between Travis Boulevard and the Dutch Brothers itself. There would be street trees involved with this, along with separate plantings. The applicant also proposes to enhance much of the existing landscaping on site. The next two slides are elevations of the proposed building. Like I said before, it would have a maximum proposed height of 24 feet. It would have a combination of various sidings to promote visual interest between the two different tenants. So here would be the front elevation, and in the rear, elevations are seen here. Key conditions of this project would involve the restriction of the sale of alcoholic beverages. Second, truck deliveries are to be made outside of the operational hours to ensure there are no conflicts between the drive-through use and any trucks that need to make deliveries for the uses on site. And an overflow queuing plan would be required in the event of cars stacking up beyond the 23 spaces required, and in which case, in that event, a mitigation plan would be in place by the applicant, and that could take the form of additional cones to direct the flow of any cars over 23. And finally, there would be limitations on outdoor speaker noise that would be required as part of this project. In terms of environmental review, the project would fall under a categorical exemption, section 1533(2) for infill development projects, as the project meets consistency with the general plan and the existing zoning, as it is located within city limits, is less than 5 acres, and is surrounded by urbanized uses. It has been determined to not function as a habitat for rare or endangered species. And the project has been determined to not have significant impacts on traffic, noise, air quality, or water quality. And finally, the site can be served by all required utilities and public services. Staff recommends that Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2022-01 granting approval of the following: Development Review DR 2021-019 and Use Permit 2021-016, and to adopt with the edits to Condition 7, which were sent prior to the meeting. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you all very much. And we also have Public Works and the applicant present at the meeting to answer any additional questions you might have as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Christie. I believe this was your first presentation to our commission. Well done, and we appreciate you joining.
Thank you.
Commissioners, what questions do you have?
Well, let me say, first of all, before I ask my question, I'm very excited about this this new development because I use this coffee place a lot. And I know that they just recently opened up one in Vacaville, so we can't let our Vacaville neighbors outdo us. So I'm very, very pleased. So I guess my questions would be, and I know that there's going to be some financial impact. What do we see the financial impact for the city coffers? Are there any estimates?
Yeah, and I'll step in. As a part of the design review and use permit for this, it's not something that we typically estimate. For this, there would be some increased property tax, which is a small amount, and then sales tax that we receive on the sales. I believe we receive 1% just as a part of the sales tax, and then an additional 1% as a part of the Measure P. So, it's somewhere between probably $20,000 and $50,000, I would estimate.
Wow. Well, it has my
Back
unwavering approval.
You can certainly ask the applicant.
I had a question. I just want to say thank you, David. Nice meeting you. My question is, can we go back to the picture of the overview? I'm very familiar with the Dollar Tree, and I was just wondering, are they going to restructure the whole area? Are they moving the Dollar Tree store? It's going to stay there, and they're going to add the Dutch Bro next to it? I'm just trying to understand, because I know there's a small lot of land that's unused, and I'm going to assume that's going to be opened up.
I'm just trying to bring that back up again. I think you can see my screen still.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So the location, so it would be, in terms of contextual map, the site itself is a vacant lot. It is a parcel that has not been developed, but which access to the Dollar Tree is required to go through. So the Dollar Tree would remain as it is, and the existing access to the Dollar Tree would remain as is, but the area of this site where the Dutch Brothers would occupy is currently vacant, or I believe that there is asphalt there right now.
Oh, okay. I see that now. And my second question, I think this is more for public works. I'm very familiar with the Vacaville Dutch Bros and the one on not Travis Boulevard, downtown. And I've noticed both of them, the traffic tends to overflow onto the street. And I guess my only concern is with Travis Boulevard. There's numerous stoplights that are fairly close. And do they run any reports on, like, as far as vehicles that run through that street? Or what's the solution aside from the cones if it's not working?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that we can bring on our public works staff who are traffic experts as needed here. I do want to point out just a couple of things. So one of the key, as David mentioned, we are requiring that they put together a queuing plan that will have multiple measures that they'll be required to demonstrate to us, all the things that they do to ensure that traffic is not backing up out onto Travis Boulevard. But the other part of this is that as a part of the use permit, condition number 17 of the use permit is that they are not, that the queuing shall not extend in a way that it impedes any of the parking, which comes well before Travis, nor shall it queue out into Travis Boulevard. So one of the things with this particular use permit, with the proposed conditions here, is that as they're operating, if they are not managing that traffic in a way that prevents from blocking any of the parking or extends out into Travis Boulevard, the Planning Commission has basis to actually revoke the use permit. So, it's essentially a protection that we have not put on any of our other drive-throughs, specifically because we've noticed with particularly Dutch Brothers over on West Texas, how it does back up into there. And so we put a specific condition here. You cannot do that. And if you do, it's grounds to actually revoke the permit and they can't operate. So it puts a lot of onus on them to put together and utilize that queuing plan to make sure that the traffic is not backing up, first of all, into blocking the parking. And then beyond that, out into Travis. The other thing I'll note is, and I think you saw from the site plan, that this drive, just the stacking before you even start backing out into the drive area, has room for 23 cars. I off the top of my head, I can't think of another drive-through here in the city that provides that much stacking before it backs into a drive aisle or into a parking area. So it's definitely it's by far the most robust stacking that I've seen here in the city. But if you need more information about the actual operations out on Travis, Commissioner Cruzen, we can bring up, and I see Alvin's here. Alvin, if you have anything else to add.
Sure. This is Alvin Lay here with the senior civil engineer for the City Public Works Department. And
Alvin,
Dave, thank you for. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, can I interrupt just for a minute? David, can we ask you to leave up the site plan while we go through this discussion?
Absolutely. I will share my screen again.
Alvin, please go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
No problem at all. So I think that Dave highlighted a lot of points that are, it captures the considerations that, myself and the Public Works team took a look at. And I actually have Tina Tran here on the call with me. So she's my go-to person for traffic related questions. So I'll defer to her for any technical information about the trip generation report or traffic assessment, which was a requirement of the project entitlements. So I'll let her chime in on that. But I think Dave summarized a lot of our considerations pretty accurately.
Sorry, one more request. Dave, could you go down to where it shows the queuing line? Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Cruzen, did you have any follow-up questions on that?
No, thank you. I think this picture kind of threw me off, but the other one made more sense. And thank you, Dave, for explaining the queuing permit. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Other commissioner questions?
Yes, I do have questions. A couple of questions. Commissioner Matthews? Chairperson Matthew?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Dave, for explaining about the permit that no other business has that type of permit for the queuing, because that's what my next question was going to be. Is that something that some of the surrounding drive-throughs have, because they clearly spill out into the streets? So that was one of my concerns. And I would like I don't know if this is from the applicant, to talk a little bit more about the mitigation plans. I see that we have the queue for 20 something cars, but in the event that it exceeds that, what is the plan? I understand that as a planning commission, if they're not abiding by the regulations, we can revoke that. But in real time, what does that look like for the citizens if we have traffic backing up into the street?
So maybe I'll try and take a stab at this. This is Alvin Lay again with the City Public Works Department. So as Dave kind of alluded to, one of the requirements of this project entitlement is for the applicant to put together and I'm probably going to use the wrong technical terms here, but a overflow mitigation plan. Learning from everyone's experiences with the existing Dutch Brothers at West Texas. So this overflow mitigation plan will be included as part of the use permit for this development. And what that looks like is we'll be looking at kind of what you, Commissioner Werblin, are alluding to, situations where an overflow occurs onto public right-of-way. So city staff, as well as the applicant and their design team, will be taking a look at how to mitigate one, those immediate situations, but then also two, how we can help facilitate long-term effects. So with that, together with working together with city code enforcement, as well as the language of the use permit, if there is a situation where that use permit would be revoked because of that overflow, and I'm probably speaking a little too unfamiliar here, but in my mind, the operations would cease pretty quickly until we can address those concerns.
I appreciate that comment. I'm still not clear though. What is that plan? I think we said 24 cars can queue. So what happens with the 25th, the 26th, the 27th at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning? That's the plan I'm trying to understand. What will happen then? Because I don't want something approved and then we're going back and trying to mitigate. I would like to know what would happen in that moment.
Sure. So we have the applicant's design team, civil engineer here. Maybe he can chime in on that.
Tom, please go ahead there.
Chair Matthews, before we have the applicant speak, we'll need to open the public hearing. So you could either do that now or after questions of staff are done.
Okay, let's just make sure there are no other questions of staff, and then we'll go into that specific. I know that there have been previously submitted a number of public comments about parking and traffic. So this will be something we want to air through the discussion here. Commissioner Wordblin, did you have other questions related to that?
So that question we can defer until we open up for public comments. And my second question was, what type of business do we think will occupy that second location that's adjacent to Dutch Brothers?
And that may be, again, a question that we'll want to get from the applicant. So if you don't mind, let's defer that question. That I have a similar question.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Smith, it looks like you have a question.
Yeah, I think my question was, well, in the presentation, it did say there was no significant impact to traffic. My question is, does anybody on staff know if the other Dutch Brothers or the one in Vacaville and Peabody Elmira, if those ones were also deemed to have no significant traffic impact? Because especially the one in Vacaville and Peabody Elmira, that one's a really busy intersection, and then cars were backed up into the street at times. I'm sure it's not always backed up, but coffee tends to be a fairly narrow period of time in the day where they have peak traffic. So I'm just kind of curious of, is it really not significant, and were those other Dutch Brothers considered not significant? Because it sure seemed significant to the people that live in the area.
Yeah, I can answer that, or at least I can tell you what I know and what I don't know. So I do not know off the top of my head what the environmental evaluation of the traffic evaluation was for the previous Dutch Brothers here in Fairfield. I certainly don't know in Vacaville. What the other Dutch Brothers was before I was running the planning commission here, so I don't know exactly what that traffic analysis showed. But what I can say is for the one that we're looking at here, it's substantially different than the one on West Texas Street. The one on West Texas Street, if I recall correctly, has one of the has a couple of drive-through lanes. I think they operate in different directions, and so one of the lanes is actually pretty short and backs up very quickly towards West Texas Street. Very different than this one, but I don't know exactly what the traffic analysis showed for that one. But our focus here and the decisions that we make here tonight are based on the information that you have about this project and this site, which is very different than the West Texas one. The other thing is, at the time we did the traffic analysis for the other West Texas one, it was a different the state law was different about how you do traffic analysis. And at that time, essentially what we were looking at was how is it forecast to operate during what we call the PM peak hour, which is 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. And as we know, coffee tends to be an earlier in the day kind of an activity. So it was very likely that during the period that any traffic analysis was prepared for that one, it was looking at that late afternoon, early evening period, which tends to be the busiest time on the street, but just happened to be less than the busiest time for that business. With this one, we're not using that late afternoon standard as we look at this. So
I would also just add that at least one of the slides that mentioned traffic was with respect to the CEQA finding, and CEQA has changed to look at VMT trips rather than LOS. So in terms of CEQA, when we're thinking about traffic impact, we are concerned about the trips that are generated by a use and not the congestion related impacts. Which is not to say that congestion is not an issue, it's just not a significant impact under CEQA.
Hi everyone, my name is Tina, I'm a transportation planner at the city. I just wanted to add a few notes if I could. Bouncing off Casey's point, yes, the VMT analysis did show that the project would result in approximately 60 vehicles per peak hour, which is well under the city's threshold of 110 for commercial uses. And for Sean's question about the queuing, the applicant submitted the queuing analysis. It focused on findings at similar drive-through Dutch Bros, and those were located in Turlock, Lodi, and Sacramento. The reason being that the West Texas and the Vacaville locations weren't designed like this design is. Those were, closer to the street, had a shorter throw distance. They were also, they didn't have walk up delivery, or they didn't have walk up ordering. There's also, a single lane. So Dutch Brothers, their planners and the managers there realized, okay, this is growing pretty quickly, and the demand is very high. So we have to, come up with solutions to better address these concerns of queuing and stacking. And that's why they came up with the dual lane, the ordering in your vehicle, and also the escape lane for those who are already served. They can get out of the queue and exit. So basically the queuing analysis said that this is not going to be this is not going to have a significant impact on queuing. And I also wanted to add that, there is that main driveway, and this is like the worst case scenario, but that could fit an additional 10 to 12 vehicles if it had to.
So Tina, for point of reference, can you tell us the approximate number of queuing cars in the North Texas location?
In the West Texas,
West Texas.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you at the top of my head.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
Oh, sorry, I can't tell you from the top of my head, but I can definitely find out for you.
Okay.
Yeah, and one thing I took a look at before the meeting, I didn't calculate queuing, but for the lane that the shortest lane as it backs up to West Texas Street from the window was 162 feet for the West Texas site. So 162 feet is the closest window to the street as you measure back along that lane. For this one, from the window to the street is about 625 feet. So it's as you wrap around the building and back down that lane. So there's roughly 4 times as much length for this one as there is for the shortest segment over on the West Texas side, or the West Texas site.
Okay. Other commissioner questions? If there aren't any...
I do have a question,
please,
Chairperson Matthews. In the report, it referenced the operational hours, I think from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. And I think it was Mr. Christie, I believe, said that deliveries would be outside of that time zone or that time frame. Can you just speak a little bit more to that? So that means that there's no truck deliveries between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m.? And
Yes,
this is, I believe, daily operations. So can you just speak to that, please?
Yes, the intent of that condition is to ensure that when trucks are coming in to make deliveries for the Dutch Brothers and the retail tenant, that they would not be interfering with the times of maximum use of the drive-through, which could easily be in the morning as well. So that way the queue does not, the truck traffic and truck deliveries do not interfere with the operation of the queue to minimize any potential overflow in the morning and in the evening as well.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner questions?
Yes, I had a quick question. Did we ever ask any of the other tenants if they had any pushback on the development, just out of curiosity?
So by other tenants, you're referring to Dollar Store and potentially Taco Bell or McDonald's?
CHP or next door. Yeah, I was just curious if they were asked.
Staff did not reach out directly. We notified all the neighboring businesses of the public hearing tonight. We have not at this point, those notices went out more than 10 days ago. We have not heard from any of the neighboring businesses of any concerns at this point.
Thank you.
And I will say that this is not the first project proposed that come before the Planning Commission for this site. There was a car wash maybe 3-4 years ago. The Dollar Tree actually did have concerns about that operation that we heard fairly loudly from them, but we haven't heard a single concern for this one.
Is the ownership for this parcel separate from the ownership of the Dollar Tree parcel or any of the adjacent parcels?
Yes, it is. It is different. Yeah,
so
there's two separate parcels here, and they're different owners.
What appears to be the dotted line with dash, that is the property ownership line?
Yes, on the site plan, this would be the property ownership line of this parcel.
Right.
Yeah. And so there's a cross easement that allows the Dollar Tree to come down that drive aisle across this parcel.
Okay. If there are no further commissioner questions, I would like to open up for public hearing. Any final questions of staff? Hearing none, I will officially open the public hearing portion of this. If there are any speakers, we'll conduct those via Zoom. But before we open it up for public comment, Tom, why don't you go ahead and address any issues that have been raised from the design team aspect of the concerns that commissioners have raised.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm assuming you can hear me okay? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much. David, thank you for your presentation. We appreciate it very much. Clearly, we've been working with the Dutch Brothers folks for quite some time, and we're clearly aware that it's a very successful business, and hence the long drive-throughs. If I could touch briefly on the Vacaville stores, yes, we are aware there were some traffic issues at the Peabody Elmira store, and we addressed those. And what was very interesting is when we opened the second store down near Alamo Drive, near Nut Tree Road, the traffic significantly ameliorated at the Elmira Peabody store because, you know, our customers that were wanting to go to Dutch Brothers were able to go maybe a little closer to where they lived in the south part of Vacaville. And we're anticipating that same kind of effort, same kind of result at this store. Now, what's really quite enlightening about the Dutch Brothers organization is they're constantly learning and striving to increase and improve their service in their locations. One of the key things that we have designed into this location, and it hasn't been addressed tonight, and it's part of the questioning that Commissioner Werblin had regarding what are the mitigation measures that we're putting into place. The crosshatched area that you see to the right of the first three cars adjacent to the Dutch Brothers window, that's what we call an escape lane. Now, the Dutch Brothers process is they take orders, they walk their workers out to the cars, they take the orders, they're electronically transmitted back, and then the drinks, as soon as they're ready, are walked out to the cars. Invariably, where the stacking occurs is where there might be a large order or a problem with payment or some other issue where someone is stuck at the drive-up window. If someone is there for an extended period of time, that crosshatch area provides an escape lane for people to get out and be able to keep the queue moving, even if there's someone stopped at the pay window. The other thing that we're doing, the second mitigation that we've done, the parking stalls directly on top of the exit lane, those 2 or 3 stalls will be crosshatched and marked reserved for customers waiting for an order. So if someone comes and has a very, very large order that's taking maybe a little longer than some of the other ones, we'll ask that customer to drive across the aisle and park while we're waiting for that order. All of these measures are designed to move the vehicles quickly and efficiently. And as the traffic mitigation report that we had prepared indicated, that 95% of the time we won't have more than 20, the very maximum we would have is 20 vehicles, not even the total number that we've provided here. And I appreciate David Feinstein's comments about stacking this. I've done projects in the Vacaville and Fairfield area for the last 40 years. I believe this is the most stacking I've ever designed in any drive-through project anywhere in Vacaville or Fairfield. And so we're very, very pleased and happy working with the Dutch Brothers folks because they are so focused on making sure their customers have a positive experience. Now, one of the questions related to the other tenant that might go in the other store, we are mindful of the fact that an additional tenant might need some parking spaces. The Dutch Brothers folks who will own the building are not interested in having a high traffic tenant in that space. And they're going to be very, very particular on who they rent it to. And in fact, one of their thoughts is they may just rent it them for their kind of their local corporate office right there next door to the store. So they're very, very mindful of that. And so that second tenant will likely be a very low intense use. It might be something like an accountant or maybe an attorney that doesn't have a lot of traffic in and out. That's the intent. So there's a number of things I wanted to make sure that I emphasize. Number one, a second store in a community lessens the traffic on the first store. We've seen that happen. It works. We've seen in the store in the Alamo Drive in Vacaville, that store has an escape lane like this one, and it works very, very well. We have no stacking issues beyond what we've already designed. So it works very, very well. And this one will have the added mitigation, like I said, of that parking stall. One thing I might mention, a couple of questions have come up about Dollar Tree. And David, you mentioned that there was a car wash and the Dollar Tree had not approved that, and it actually never went forward. We've spent quite a bit of time working with not only the Dollar Tree landowner, but the land operator, the Dollar Tree operator, to make sure there's an agreement in place that they are supportive, and they have approved this site plan and this use. And so they are supportive and have agreed to it in writing. And so we're very, very happy about that. And that negotiation took quite a while. I think we have submitted this application a while ago, and it took some time, and that's all been done. I think I've touched on the issues, and I'm happy to answer any other questions. We have reviewed and read the staff report, and we are in agreement with the findings, and we're very pleased. Kaylee Slover and her brother Grant, are on the call. Kaylee is going to be the operator. Kaylee has been ill a little bit. Her voice is very, very weak right now. But if there's a question that I can't answer, I'll try and get Grant or Kaylee to weigh in. But we're happy to take any questions, and we're very excited. We're very pleased. Your staff has been excellent to work with, and we appreciate their feedback and the interchange back and forth. And we think we've developed a very, very nice quality project.
Thank you very much, Tom. And we're certainly aware of the many projects you've worked on for the city and in the surrounding communities. And we appreciate your professional approach there. Commissioners, question for the design team before we go to public comment.
I guess I have a question. You mentioned the crosshatch areas, the escape lane. Approximately how many cars can use that area?
Well, the intent, thank you for the question. The intent is that once one of the people behind the person may be waiting at the window, once they have their drinks, they're able to just drive out. That's why that is there. So it's not intended to queue anyone. It's actually intended. So let's say car number 3 in line has its drinks. Car number 3 doesn't have to wait for car numbers 1 and 2 to go through the pay window. They've already paid. They've already gotten their order, and they're able to drive. The crosshatch area allows them space to be able to drive out, and thence the line can continue. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you for that clarification.
And just to confirm something Tina mentioned a minute ago, if you were to go in front of the queuing line, are you in agreement there are between 10 to 12 parking or queuing capability along the parking aisle there?
Yes, right along that drive aisle, you could have additional stalls there. Quite candidly, based on our experience with the various stores we worked on, it would be highly unusual for that to happen. And as I mentioned earlier, we are going to keep some parking stalls available. So we are really going to do everything we can to keep that queuing line moving and provide places for people to go, so we don't ever even get out into that queuing line or into the drive aisle.
And David, would you go to slide 3 again? Is there the capacity for people, and I'm not sure, the entrance to McDonald's and also back entrance to Taco Bell drive lines are off of that road that shoots off of Travis. I'm sorry, I don't know the name of that, but yeah, I'm not clear. Will people be able to drive through right in front of Dollar and come in the back way as opposed to in Travis? Am I making that question clear?
Yeah, we understand. There at present, and I do not believe this is proposed, there is no access from Dollar Tree to the west, which would be an existing gym, I believe, and the McDonald's and the Taco Bell. So this is the only drive aisle into the Dollar Tree.
But is there a physical barrier that makes crossing that parking lot on the backside of Taco Bell and McDonald's and in the front side of Dollar? Is there something physically that stops that?
I do not believe they've presently been connected. I do not know the exact elevation difference, but I believe there is an existing planter and curb between the two lots.
Mr. Chairman, if I could interject, that's correct. There's a landscaping and curb there. So
okay.
I don't remember if there's a fence there. I apologize. I don't remember that, but there is a curb. Oh, and that someone has just indicated on your chat that there is a fence.
Very good. Commissioners, other questions for the design team? Hearing none, let's move into the public comment portion. What do we have any speakers on Zoom?
There we go. So I have a couple of questions and comments. First, I want to say that I'm a Dutch Brothers fan, so I love Dutch Brothers. It's nothing against them, but I'm also a public safety fan, and I'm married to what my job here is to make sure that we respond swiftly to any incidents out there on the roadways or in the county. And so that's my main concern and why I'm here tonight. Mr. Feinstein had mentioned earlier that the neighbors were notified. I've never received anything in regards to Dutch Brothers. It was secondhand that I learned that this was even happening tonight. So I'm just glad that I have the opportunity to be here. A couple things that I noticed. What about the Dollar Tree? So the Dollar Tree, you guys had mentioned that, and again, it goes to backing up and causing issues with us responding and getting out. That's the main concern, is blocking in front of my driveway at the highway patrol, which is right next door. You mentioned that the I guess the shipments that come in, it's just the tenant. You didn't mention the Dollar Tree. Are they agreeing to that too? So you're telling me the Dollar Tree will not get shipments during the day? Because if that's the case, it sounded like they were left out of it, that would make it where there would be shipments in the day, which could cause a backup. The enforcement piece I'm worried about as well, because if it does back up, how's that going to look? Are you going to kick them out? I highly doubt that. And then the business model, this is a new Dutch Brothers to me, seeing that there's a building right next to it. So what enforcement hand do you have to say, well, our intent is to have that tenant of that just be an accountant? If that's the case, is there something that can enforce that? That's all it's going to be. I would imagine if I'm a business owner, and I'm a business owner, that I would say, wow, there's a lot of traffic going through here. That would be a good place to have to sell some things or whatnot. So again, public safety, you could have pedestrians that get hit there or hurt. So I worry about that. The mitigation plan, I would have loved to have seen that and been a part of that, because I truly worry about, and looking at the other Dutch Brothers, how it's, even though, and I know no engineer says, hey, I'm going to approve this, it looks good, unfortunately, we've just seen that happen in many places where it goes out into the street. And again, in front of our driveway. Many of y'all don't understand that what we do in the front lot of the CHP there too is we test bus drivers. So we have a lot of big traffic coming into our front lot, trucks, VIN verification. So there's other things right at the front there that I worry that could cause it to be congested and issues. So those are some of my main concerns. Again, I'm a Dutch Brother fan, but there is some safety concerns I have in regards to responding. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. West, thanks very much. Just to clarify, what is your role with a highway patrol there? Did we lose Steve West?
No, here we are. I'm sorry. I'm the commander of the California Highway Patrol in Solana.
Okay, great. And again, thank you. Mr. Feinstein, it's my understanding anybody within 600, and usually you go to 1,000, any business or residence would be mailed a notice. Is that correct?
So it's actually any property owner within 500 feet. So, it could be, and I think if I heard that correctly, he's with the Highway Patrol. It probably went to a state of California address. It would not have gone directly to that particular office. But typically the owners are and I don't want to overspeak here, but not quite so remote from the actual recipient of the notice. In this case, it probably went to a state of California address that was separate from the actual Highway Patrol office itself.
Right.
It's whoever's listed as the property owners who we know we're able to contact.
All right. So that, again, just to confirm with staff, there are no other Zoom question comments. Is that correct? And perhaps, Dave, you can just summarize the email comments that were received earlier and briefly relate those concerns.
Sure. So the general concerns, and we had forwarded, just today we got 4 or 5 email comments, and then a chain of conversation was forwarded to us as well that we passed on to the commissioners earlier this afternoon. It was as soon as we got them. But the gist of them were primarily concern about the traffic. And concerned particularly about the effect on Travis Boulevard, concern that having to make U-turns because you can only make a right turn out of there. But I think we've talked quite a bit at length about the traffic issues and the protections that are being put in place for that. If I could just respond to a couple of comments from the speaker, Mr. Chair, is that?
Yeah, do we, Casey, do we need to close public hearing and then go into staff response?
Sure. If there are no other public speakers, Chair, you're free to close the public hearing.
Okay. Public hearing portion for item A is now closed. Mr. Feinstein and or David, if there are other staff responses that you want to make based on comments and questions that have been raised.
Yeah, so a couple of points that were brought up. One was a question about the Dollar Tree and whether or not there's requirements here for them as far as their deliveries and the time for that. And the answer is no. It's a pre-existing use. It's a separate piece of property. It operates under its own land use rights, and with this action here, we have no ability to tell a third party how they can operate. But what I will say is that they have their own parking area, their own drive-up area over there. Yes, they will have to drive across this parcel to get there, but where they actually would load and unload would not be on this parcel. It would be much closer to their building. So, the real issue is, are we having trucks that are parked to make that delivery in the area that we're going to be queuing for this? And their trucks, there's every reason to think their trucks are parked actually much closer to their building, farther at the back. So bottom line is we can't control that here, but from staff's view, it really wasn't an issue that was a particular concern with this one. One other comment, and it was, I think it was a little throwaway comment, but concerned that, if we do have problems, we're not going to shut them down. So what I do want to say, and I'll say this to the Planning Commission, because you're the body that approves this project, you are also the body that has the authority to revoke the use permit. So if you are, the concerns lay with this commission in the ultimate decision to revoke a use permit. So the way that would operate is, so if this is approved as proposed, there's a condition that not only requires that they prepare a plan for how they're going to address the queuing, that they operate according to that, and that they do not allow traffic to back into Travis Boulevard. It's explicit. Traffic cannot back into Travis Boulevard. If we do discover that for whatever reason that's happening, if we see that happening, if we get reports that's happening, this is, I think you can tell this is a particular concern for staff and how we put these conditions together. The first thing that we do is we reach out immediately to the operator and we say, look, you've got a use permit that says you can't do this. We're seeing this issue. You need to correct this immediately, and you need to show us how you're correcting it. And essentially, if we see that it is not corrected, if it's happening a second time, a third time, that's where staff brings this back to the commission, and you have the authority to revoke this permit. So, there's a lot of value in having this permit, and I think it's reasonable to say that we're putting this operator on more notice than any other use permit for a drive-through that I've seen, and the risks are great if they're violating that. But the power does lie with the Planning Commission to revoke that.
Very good, commissioners. What additional questions, deliberation, comments do you all have?
I just want to point out a couple of things that I think that they did a really good job of addressing, the big problem, which is traffic. I still have real concerns that we're going to be dumping car after car after car after car after car, 12 hours a day onto Travis, just essentially coming on, which causes the traffic that's coming that way to have to stop and yield and wait. And I think that in itself is going to be a problem. I can understand that they're going to hold 24 cars at a bay at a time and not have them backed up on Travis, but I think that still doesn't do away with the fact that we're going to be, there's just going to be this revolving door of cars zipping in and zipping out on a road that is already heavily congested because of its lack of U-turns and lack of accessibility to go left or right, depending on which side you're coming in or coming out of. The McDonald's and Taco Bells are already pretty busy with their drive-thrus. The In-N-Out is sometimes backs all the way up to Travis Boulevard. You've got a Pete's Coffee there. You've got a Starbucks coffee. I'm not sure we need another coffee retailer to go in, although I'm not, I'm a big fan of Dutch Brothers in the sense that their business practices are great and they're good for the community and they're a great business. So this is nothing personal against them. I just don't see that this is the ideal location for this type of business. And then Dave, you mentioned that, the Dollar Tree has its own trucks that come in and out. I mean, with this new building and everything going up right there, they're going to be able to get a semi truck in there and turn it around and come out? Because it doesn't look like there's enough room to do that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Can we have a response about vehicles delivering to the Dollar Tree? Tom, is that something the design team looked at all?
Yeah, they have their own space. They have their own ability to turn on site for the Dollar Tree. So we don't see that as a conflicting movement at all. We just don't. So and I would emphasize the fact that we have been working hand in hand with Dollar Tree to make sure that we are a compatible use, and they have approved our site plan. And if anyone had a concern, if anyone at Dollar Tree had a concern, they would have let us know. But we actually have a signed agreement with them that we can operate as we've shown on our plans.
All right. Mr. McDonald, the point of, and there were public comments to the same effect, that, hey, we got way too many coffee retailers. Basically, it's my opinion that that's a decision the retailer is empowered to make. And if their business model shows that they can be successful despite other competitors nearby, that's an informed decision they're making. And that this is not a question of zoning so much as it is the conditional use. Mr. Feinstein, would this come before the Planning Commission if it were not for the conditional use permit?
Correct. It's the drive-through that triggers the conditional use permit. Yeah. If they didn't have a drive-through, a business selling coffee, it's a market decision about whether or not they want to enter into that market. But it's a question of the drive-through that triggers that use permit.
Please go ahead. Other commissioner comments, thoughts?
Yes, I do have a couple of thoughts. Just looking in that area, my thoughts are along the same lines as Commissioner McDonald, that not only does the In and Out back up to the main street, the Starbucks on Oliver Road, a lot of times in the morning and the evenings, back up to Oliver Road, depending upon how the cars are queuing. And it does seem like a tremendous amount of vehicles exiting onto Travis Boulevard. And I just have some concerns. It, in my opinion, does not seem like the ideal location for business like this. And I do appreciate the engineers and Dutch Brothers for being thoughtful and creating a design so that cars can queue and stack within that lot. But I think that location is just not ideal. And I appreciate from Dollar Tree's perspective, that's an enormous amount of traffic coming into a space that typically right now does not have. So I can understand from their perspective, having this increased cars could be increased people, and coming into their store. But just looking at in that area, it doesn't seem ideal. And not to mention that the CHP is adjacent. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, thoughts?
I had a question. So Tom Felipe, you are the designer, correct? That's designing this. And then the potential owner would be Kaylee Stover. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We're the civil engineering firm. The actual building itself was designed by an architect, but we did the site plan work and those and Kaylee Silver will be the operator. Yes, ma'am.
I think my biggest concern would just be the safety and the CHP issue, but I am interested to hear from Kaylee her thoughts in regards to our concerns. Would she do anything different compared to other stores as far as addressing the issues that we have? I know that it's a very popular location, so I can see why it's ideal to have it there. So I was just curious if we could just hear from Kaylee.
And
she has a bad voice, but hopefully she can come on. I know she's listening.
May I just tag on to that request? Kaylee Kaylee, if you would confirm that you have the same understanding as Mr. Feinstein has presented relative to the conditional use aspect of the line queuing.
Chair, could you please reopen the public hearing in order to ask additional questions of the applicant?
Okay, we officially now are opening public comment and are inviting the applicant to speak to the questions that have been raised.
Hi, so sorry, bear with me. I have no voice. But will you repeat your question? You wanted me to hear about the conditional use permit.
If you can confirm your understanding that should there be a practical problem, the conditional use permit is subject to revocation by the city.
Yes, that is how I understand it. We definitely, like Tom has mentioned, I've been a franchisee with Dutch Bros since 2014 when we opened up the first Fairfield location. We've learned a lot since then. You know, that's an understatement of how much we've learned operationally and what we're doing now. The biggest thing that we haven't talked about is how much more equipment we have on the inside to be able to operate and move our lines even faster. You know, our Fairfield location, we're maxed out on power. We can't put any more equipment into that location because we don't have the power to add anything to it. Where this one, you know, we're going to have twice as much as equipment to be able to serve our customers and to be able to move our line faster as well. And then, of course, if you guys have been to our new location on Alamo, you know, we've learned a lot and we've applied what we've learned as far as moving our lines outside, how many runners outside do we need to serve our customers. That escape lane is huge as far as operationally and to always be keeping our line moving and shortening.
Commissioner Cruzen, do you want to restate your question?
Oh, thank you so much, Kaylee. I appreciate it. I actually apologize that you lost your voice. Additional question that I have as well is I was looking at the design. Is there an open walk-up option as well too? And do you plan on employing more employees compared to the other stores aside from putting in more equipment?
Yeah, so we will anticipate hiring about, 55 to 60 employees for this location. They're part-time. We do offer, we'll have about 8 full-time employees, but the rest of them are part-time with school and such. And then what was your first part of the question?
Looking from the design, is there a walk-up window option?
Oh, yes, there is going to be a walk-up window for them too. You can't walk into the building, but we will be able to serve our customers from a walk-up window.
So it's another added option. If the line is too long, people can park their cars and just get their drinks and go.
Yes, correct.
Got it. Thank you, Kaylee.
You're welcome.
Other commissioner questions?
We'll add that, as of now, it is a pretty good homeless camp out over there. So this probably will lessen that congestion of homeless people hanging out in that particular area, because that's become kind of a haven because of the deep parking lot and it just being so far back there. I'm surprised that Dollar Tree hasn't done more to prevent that, because it gets pretty bad in some areas and that. So, and I honestly don't have another solution for what could go there. And this is a great opportunity to fill the space. So I think that needs to be said.
Just to follow up on a couple of comments that Commissioner McDonald raised earlier, as you come out of the parking area and turn right on Travis, you cannot, and I'm asking for confirmation, do a U-turn at that intersection. Is that correct? It's only a left-hand turn if you want to get off of Travis, or a right-hand turn.
I believe so. I believe you're correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think we can anticipate, similar to some of the concerns that are going on in the Green Valley area on Business Center Drive, that, you know, that's going to continue. It's going to exacerbate some of the traffic issues. Having said that, you know, this meets zoning. My personal opinion is that the guidance staff have provided us about the conditional use permit gives the city a much stronger, you know, regulatory control than, frankly, I've seen in other similar situations. So from that standpoint, I'm supportive of this initiative. Do you want to deliberate more, or are we ready to call the question from the commission?
It looks like there is additional public comment, and since the public hearing has been reopened,
okay,
take that opportunity.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Sorry if the video doesn't load. I just wanted to comment really quickly about, I've been in the land use planning for, as a developer for 21 years with Dutch Bros, personally also for about 12. I do want to say that the traffic queuing and mitigation measures that we've put into place on this one, such greatly outweigh anything that we've tried or even seen anywhere else. So it was like everyone that we talked to, we came together with Flippy, with Kaylee in the field, all, you know, any negative comments we had from people or cities in the past, and put them all into action on one plan. So, you know, from having extra parking spaces to put customers, if we need to give them some additional time that won't hold up queuing, to, if you notice, when you come in the drive aisle, we have no parking spaces on our side of the drive aisle. That's specifically so we don't have any, if we need to go to an overflowing queuing, we won't even be blocking people that are parked there. And then, you know, we went with so much more stacking than even our traffic study said would be a worst case scenario. Then we implemented the bypass lane, and it's just like all of these measures coming together. We've never seen it happen all at once or all together. So in different locations, we've seen one or two of these queuing solutions put together, and they work tremendously. The bypass lane alone solves an unbelievable amount of the queuing problems. To combine them all together, in our opinion, is going to be a substantial improvement to, I think, anything we've seen with traffic problems in the past. And it could provide, in our opinion, the model for how all of these high traffic businesses should try and address these things. And this particular site, which is how this is different than Peabody, which is bringing up, you know, a lot of your traffic concerns. One of the elements that'll make this better than that location is not something that we did, but something inherent to just the layout. The right in, right out alone will stop any kind of cross traffic that needs to come in. So one of our customers that needs to leave will never have to cross vehicular paths with somebody waiting to come in. So that person that needs to sit on the road to turn in while you have a customer trying to leave just doesn't happen, just by design. So we believe that all of these things combined, we're going to find that this is hopefully the smoothest flowing high traffic Dutch Bros that, you know, we've seen in the entire fleet.
Very good. Thank you, Grant. If there are no other public speakers, I'd like to reclose the public hearing. If we don't have an explicit reason against that, and given this is the only agenda item, I'd be supportive of that. Casey or Dave, is there any reason why we can't allow it?
Ordinarily, we would not allow a member of the public to speak twice once they've exhausted their 3 minutes. In this case, since the public hearing was closed and then reopened and additional information was presented, I would say these circumstances are narrow, and Chair, it's at your discretion.
Okay, let's move forward with the comment.
There we go, back in. I just wanted to add a couple comments because there was question about that intersection being a left turn only, not a U-turn. I don't know if that's something that's to consider, making that where you can do a U-turn. Obviously, the engineers and city planners, you would know what's best and why that's that way. Because what will happen is people will go left there and make a left. And someone had mentioned earlier about the in and out. That's always backed up there. So that's going to add even more around that area over there, because people are trying to go back over the freeway that direction on Travis Boulevard. You know, for us in front of our facility, all we have for our emergency operations to get out of there is that there's a little opening. We can cut across emergency vehicles, but it is very dangerous. And I've had some of my guys get in crashes, so I don't encourage that. So a lot of times we have to make that right, go through the intersection, left, go all the way around to get back on the freeway. So that's just something to consider if this does get approved, to maybe that could relieve some of that traffic congestion. But again, that's for the engineers to figure that out. That's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. West, and thank you for your service too. I am concerned with the clearance capacity for a U-turn at that intersection, but I'm sure that's something that city personnel can look at carefully as time goes on. Let's go back to the commission. Excuse me. We're now officially closing the public hearing portion of this comment.
Chair?
Yes.
I've had my hand up for a while. I think my question's probably going to necessitate opening up the public comment again if you close it.
Okay, please go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. So I guess first I'll say that I like the idea of the infill development in an underutilized area. That lot is generally not, it's kind of a blight, honestly. So I do like the idea of it being proposed for use. And, you know, I think generally I hear, you know, a lot of positive things about Dutch Brothers, although I don't drink coffee, so I don't have a real dog in the fight there on the Starbucks versus Dutch Brothers versus anybody else. I think the zoning, the design, the explanation of the mitigation measures and the explanation from Tom, I think that was positive, but I do have a few concerns. I think one is that the efforts were taken because they kind of had to, and because it is a difficult project. So I think if they didn't take those measures, I think it would be obvious that we probably wouldn't approve it. And I know that even with those measures, there's still concerns in a few areas, but I guess traffic being probably a primary one. I do wish that we had maybe taken a little more time to get a formal response from the CHP, although I'm glad that we did hear from a member of the public regarding that. I think between the CHP response and kind of the unknowns on the vendor impact of who's going to be there, I think that just kind of makes me concerned, because I think even if it was just Dutch Brothers, I think it would still be very busy. I'm not sure if an accountant is going to be or a lawyer and accountant would be, you know, the best fit for that area. But I mean, I guess that's possible. But I'm wondering is with the Dollar Tree probably getting busier, with, you know, all the prices going up, and then I think the 99-cent store on West Texas is probably going to be gone in favor of housing at some point. So I don't see the Dollar Tree getting any slower anytime soon. So I'm just kind of wondering is, you know, as far as the locations, was there any alternatives that were considered, and maybe decided against for one reason or another? Is that something that maybe could be shared? Just wondering if you could maybe address, if Tom or one of the team could address that.
Kaylee, that would be a question for you or Grant, I think, if you've looked at any other stores, any other locations.
Yeah, we're constantly looking at locations. You know, that's all I'm doing on my back end is finding new locations to grow and open up. This one we really like. We really like the location and where it's at in proximity. We know it's going to help reduce our current store because, like I said, that store is definitely maxed out to its capability. And so we wanted to find something that would be close to that to help, you know, mitigate that as well. But yes, we're constantly looking for sites, you know, deals go through all the time. You know, I have several LOIs out constantly trying to open up new locations.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Is there any, I mean, I guess the reason I'm asking is because I think that in the public comments that we received, there were, I think, a few suggestions, and I'm just kind of curious on if you can share a little bit more detail on you know, which locations were kind of scrapped for one reason or another, just because there are other spaces that I think could be viable potentially.
Yeah, I mean, we've had deals with like the Burger King on Travis, but then there's like a whole thing to get the underground that's not there, you know, feasible for it. You know, my territory goes to Sassoon. We've had some deals, you know, next to the Panda Express where we were negotiating. And then also in Vacaville, we're constantly looking. So my territory goes from Vacaville, Sassoon, and Cordelia area.
Things specific in Fairfield?
Yeah, we've definitely dove into trying to go onto I've been into the city and talked to like the Economic Development Committee, trying to go on the north end of town. But they said we could go there as long as we're there with a bigger development. And so just a time frame of waiting for something to go there. Like I said, for this one in particular, why we're we're trying to stay relatively close. You know, we're only within 1.5 miles of our current location, and we would like to be able to help mitigate the sales at that stand and help, you know, reduce them.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Smith, any other questions from you?
No.
Other commissioner questions before we reclose the public hearing portion? Hearing none, we will. Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I'm just wondering, I'm sorry, I'm joining kind of late, why we haven't looked at areas like next door to the Burger King, and have we talked to the state of California about what we're going to do about the traffic? Because you can't guarantee that this is going to be limited to 23 cars in this parking lot and not block the entrance and the exit to the emergency vehicles coming in and out of the CHP office. I can tell you as a government worker, I know that I've worked with the state of California, and that I know that the state of California will close shop there and Fairfield will lose that industry that we have right there. So if we're looking to lose that common ground with the state of California, we're going to make waves where they don't need to be made. And I don't understand why this is even coming across as a potential for when this is a traffic hazard. You're going to block emergency vehicles coming into the neighborhoods over here because that traffic is going to be backed up. Look at what In-N-Out Burger is doing. In-N-Out blocks the roadway over there. Emergency vehicles are not able to get through. People are not able to get through. That's what's going to happen. So I want to know what the commission is doing to look at the traffic hazards that's going to be caused and the impediment it's going to cause to the emergency vehicles and to the state of California and the CHP.
All right. Thank you, Linda. we have addressed a number of those issues. I think we're all concerned about safety, but we've in the past hour been going through some of those exact concerns. Are there the staff or design team or ownership wish to respond to this last public comment?
Yeah, at least from
looks
staff.
like Grant Janser's hand is up, Mr. Chairman. You might ask Grant. It looks like you have something to say.
Grant, please go ahead.
Hey, just a comment to Linda real quickly. I think that a lot of it is we're trying to judge what's going to happen on this site based on what's happened at other sites. And while you don't want to just ignore what you see at other locations, I do want to point out that even with our other locations or with things like at In-N-Out Burger, you're going to find that they're trying almost none of these queuing mitigations that we have on our plan. And we have half a dozen of them. We have more stacking capacity than anyone's ever had. And to boot, we're giving you the authority by nature of the conditions of approval. We're giving you control of the conditional use permit. So this is like a carte blanche, do everything that's even possible to try and get this thing done. And we're not just doing it just to satisfy you guys. The traffic from an operator standpoint is super important. So, it brings a lot of headaches to Kaylee as the operator also. And so we're throwing it up front. Let's just make sure they don't happen as best we can. And anyone that had an idea that we thought might work, we just threw it all into one plan. And again, if they don't work, we are leaving you for the first time with the ability to have in our conditions of approval, the ability to pull the conditional use permit. So from an operator standpoint, no one has been more motivated to make sure you're not backing up than we would be in this case.
Thank you, Grant. Are there any other public comments? Well, unless there's some other new issue, I believe all the issues that were raised, we've addressed through our prior conversations and then re-summarized here. So, okay, I would like to close the public hearing portion and return again to deliberation by the commissioners. Are there additional comments, discussion items commissioners would like to bring up on this item?
I'd like to get a little clarification, if I can, from either David or somebody in Public Works. What's the process of determining whether or not that particular intersection, when you come out right, the one that turns left onto Oliver Road, or goes straight up to Waterman, or turns right into the egress road, whatever it is that goes back behind McDonald's, making a U-turn applicable there? Because I certainly see that a lot of people will be doing that. and if not doing that, they'll be turning left or turning right, then turning a U-turn and turning around. And that's just going to be, that's my biggest concern, is that that's where the traffic is going to be a problem. Not in how many cars we can get and hold in the parking lot, but it's the constant flow of them coming out and then being stuck with having to go right all the way up to Waterman, or go left to jump back on the freeway, or because they can't turn around and go back the other way. And I think that that's going to cause a lot of problems. Dutch Brothers has a very loyal following and almost a cultish kind of fanatic following to them, where they do attract people. So as soon as they know there's one there, they're going to be popping off of the freeway and stopping left and right. And I also think that the CHP commander was pretty vocal about the safety concerns in that area. So I think that's the real problem, is how do we address that intersection, and can that be done? Because as Commissioner Smith said, I'm not sure that there's enough room there to turn around on an SUV, for instance, rather not a compact, but an SUV doing a U-turn at that intersection.
Yeah, and I think that was a question to staff. It's really a question for our Public Works team, either Alvin or Tina. I know we don't have Garland Wong, our traffic engineer, but Alvin or Tina, are you able to answer that question?
Sure. This is Alvin with Public Works Department, just to kind of chime in here. I know that of course, we'll check in with our city traffic engineer and his team just to provide some follow-up information to the commissioners here about how intersections are determined that U-turn movement is not feasible. I do know that there are several considerations and factors that kind of go into that ultimate decision. So we will follow up with the response to the commissioners here. I do want to highlight that in the past, there have been developers that have posed the question to our traffic department about, if a U-turn is absolutely necessary at this intersection. And each time the answer has always come back with, yes, U-turn movement here is infeasible. And we can't allow that. But we'll follow up with the commissioners with more concrete information about how that's determined.
Thank you. Other commissioner questions, deliberations? Not seeing any hands raised.
I do have my hand raised,
Okay.
Chairperson Matthews. I think in addition to what Commissioner McDonald said, I'm also concerned about the exiting of the cars and the traffic coming from the freeway on 80 as well, because right now that area is continually congested. And so this is going to be an outpouring of additional cars that's backing up those going past I think it's the Chevron gas station right next to the CHP. So I think it's not only the cars within the establishment, but it's all those cars exiting, even as quickly as they're exiting. That's also going to, I imagine, back up traffic for the folks exiting the freeway. And then I appreciate what the applicant is talking about to help level off some of the pressure on the other location in Fairfield. I'm just concerned that there's an issue there. We're going to create another establishment and potentially have an issue there. And so we're going to have two locations that could cause some issues for our residents.
Okay. I would just like to go back to the comment and that's been made several times before. The applicant, I don't know the exact construction budget, but with equipment, I have to assume will be in the $4 to $5 million range at a minimum. And my opinion is, if the applicant is willing to put that substantial of an investment at risk, knowing that if there is a traffic problem, most, maybe not all, there may be some residual value to other uses, but most of the business investment will be put at risk. And so in my mind, what that does is convey to us as commissioners that they have a high level of confidence that in fact, the mitigation efforts that have been proposed, they will be successful with. So I think that's a very important point for us to keep in mind. Do commissioners want to discuss any other aspects of this, or can we call the question?
I would call the question.
Do you want to make a motion then?
I make a motion that we call for the approval of, what is it, 2022, what are the numbers on it again?
PC 2021-23. Oh, excuse me, no, that's the next one. 2022-01.
Yes, 2022-01.
Mr. Chair, before the motion is completed here, I do want to just go back to the recommendation. There was a change that staff noted to condition 7 of the use permit. And we had forwarded that out to you, but I want to just highlight it here. If that motion is being made to correct the language in the use permit that was proposed that originally said that the deliveries had to happen during the operating hours, that it really was intended to read outside those operating hours. So staff is proposing that one condition be changed. So if you do make a motion, we would recommend that the motion include that change to condition 7 of the use permit to make clear that the deliveries have to happen outside the operating hours.
Commissioner Child, do you want to rephrase your motion?
Yes, I make a motion that we approve notion 2022-01 with the language change in section 7, was it?
Condition 7 of the use permit.
Yeah, condition 7 of the conditional use permit.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Feinstein, will you please conduct the roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Cruzen?
Yes.
Commissioner Evans is absent. Commissioner McDonald?
No.
Commissioner Smith? Commissioner Smith?
Sorry, I was on mute. No.
Commissioner Werblin?
No.
Vice Chairperson Childs?
Yes.
And Chairperson Matthews?
Yes.
Okay, so it looks like we have a tie vote, and I'll ask the city attorney to weigh in, but a tie vote, my understanding is the motion does not pass.
That's correct.
Okay.
So as I understand it, at this point, the applicant has the option to go in front of city council or to re-engage with staff and re-present. Is that correct, Casey?
So the commission hasn't taken action yet. The motion to approve failed. If the commission would like to direct staff to bring back a resolution with findings of denial, then the commission could vote on that. The staff would bring back that resolution of denial at the next meeting. And once that action is final, then there would be the opportunity to appeal to city council. At this point, there isn't an action to appeal to city council quite yet.
All right. Okay, that concludes item A. I neglected earlier in the
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I think the city attorney.
So since the commission hasn't taken action on this, we would be seeking direction from the commission on whether to bring back a resolution with findings of denial, or another option, Dave, would potentially be to continue the item to the next meeting.
I'd like a more thorough traffic study done in the sense of two things. One is if we could get some verification that this operation works somewhere else, stacking in a like kind situation, I think would be better served. Again, I don't have much of a problem with the business there and them stacking the cars. I just worry about the amount of cars coming onto Travis on a continual basis and where they're going to go. And without something of a U-turn or something re-engineering of that area, I don't know that we can say or should say yes to something as congested as that.
Mr. Smith, it looks like you have a comment.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner McDonald. I was also wondering is it, I feel like maybe we could have gotten a more response from the CHP. Is that something that we could get and possibly reconsider the item if once we have something formal from the CHP and the traffic information?
So my recommendation here is that I believe both the applicant and staff understand the concerns that have been raised by the commissioners, and that we continue this item to our next meeting and determine whether there's additional information that may be useful in reconsidering the question.
Yeah, and what I'll say is I'm not sure that staff will be ready to come back at your next meeting. I might recommend that you give one extra meeting for us to do some additional study. And there may be, some of it may take a little longer than that, but I don't know that we'll be ready to come back at your very next meeting.
That's fine too. So, Casey, does that give enough direction, or do we need a formal motion or something stronger?
Sure. Well, why don't you make a motion to continue it to, Dave, I don't have a calendar in front of me.
I'm pulling it up right now. I think it's February 9th.
Sure. A motion to continue the item to the February 9th meeting with direction to staff to do additional analysis consistent with the commissioner's concerns.
May I have that motion, please?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Mr. Feinstein, will you please conduct the roll call?
Yes. Let's see. Commissioner Cruzen?
Yes.
Commissioner Evans is absent. Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Let's see. Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner Werblin?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Childs?
Yes.
And Chairperson Matthews?
Yes.
Okay, so we will come back on the 9th with additional information, or if it takes a little more time, we'll seek a continuance at that time. But we'll try to come back with all the information for you on the 9th.
Very good. That concludes item A. As we've previously discussed, item B is being continued. I neglected to ask for approval of the minutes for December 8th, 2021. May I have a motion regarding approval of those minutes, please?
Chairperson Matthew, I make a motion to approve the Planning Commission minutes for December 8th, 2021.
And the second.
Second. Was that a second, Commissioner Smith?
That was a second.
Okay. Mr. Feinstein, will you please conduct the roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Cruzen?
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald?
Abstain. I was absent.
And I skipped Commissioner Evans, who I noted is absent. Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Werblin?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Childs?
Yes.
And Chairperson Matthews?
Yes. Okay. We are now moving into item 7, or 8, excuse me, Director's Report. Mr. Feinstein.
Multiple items here to report on. A couple of things returning back to you from your last meeting. First of all, there was a question. We had brought before you an industrial project, and there was a question, I think, from Chairperson Matthews about are there any requirements for developments like that to use LED lights, particularly a lot in the outside lighting for that area. And I spoke with our chief building official, who confirmed the answer that I had given as my speculation of what the answer was at that meeting, and that there is not a formal requirement that LED lighting be used. They are required to do an energy analysis as a part of their building permit submittal. And what our chief building official has told me is that LED lighting is both so efficient as well as so inexpensive these days that it's, for all intents and purposes, become the default for what people are proposing. So even though there's not a requirement, LED lighting is essentially the standard for what's being proposed for projects here in the city of Fairfield. There was another question where we had talked about the upcoming additional analysis or workshops, I should say, that the City Council will be holding on the various alternatives for the general plan. And we want to announce those dates. So they're going to be the second Tuesday of February, March, and April, which are the 8th of February and March and the 12th of April. So our City Council meets regularly on the first meeting of the month, the second meeting, or the first Tuesday of the month, the second Tuesdays of the month for the next 3 months. We're going to have additional discussion, essentially slow down the discussion, get a little more focused on different parts of the city rather than the council taking it all up in one meeting as we had originally presented to them in November. They're going to look at the issues of various alternatives over 3 separate meetings. So second Tuesdays of the next months at 6 o'clock. And most likely, at least that first meeting will be Zoom. I don't think it's formally been set, but judging from where we are today, a decent chance I'd say that that'll be Zoom rather than in person. But when the agenda comes out, that'll be official for the location for that. The third item I want to talk about is I mentioned at the last meeting that typically in March, the Cal Cities holds the annual Planning Commissioners Academy training opportunity for all of our commissioners. Commissioner McDonald, I know you've attended in your previous time on the commission. I don't know if any of the other commissioners have. I know last year it was completely on Zoom. Several of you may have participated. We signed all of you up and gave you that opportunity. At the moment, it is tracking to be in person down real close to here, down in San Ramon. And the dates, I'm going to give you the dates, and I'll send you a notice by email. But what I want to do is to assess who might be interested in attending. The dates, and again, I'll follow up with an email to you tomorrow, are March 16th through March 18th. That is a Wednesday through a Friday. And at the moment, they're showing it's going to be in person down. I didn't catch which hotel down. Marriott. Is it the Marriott? Okay. But I'll follow up with some information for you. Those are great, particularly for those commissioners who have not attended one of these. Lots of sessions over the course of 3 days. And you'll get, some of the sessions will be on hot topics of the moment. Some are sessions they give at every conference, some basic overviews and training. There's CEQA discussion, particularly if you're new using CEQA, they'll give you an overview of that. If you haven't done your ethics training, they have ethics training. It's pick your sessions. They've got multiple ones going on at the same time. So you got lots of choices. So I'll be reaching out to find out who's interested in attending that. A couple more items for you. I had mentioned at your last meeting that we are in the midst of recruiting new staff. I think, as you all know, we've lost 3 of our staff recently. I'm pleased to announce that on Friday, the first of our new staff will be starting. It's a woman named Jessie Hernandez, who's coming to us most recently from the outside consulting firm MIG. So she's got quite a bit of experience, particularly more on the long range side in development of general plans and housing elements. So she's going to be starting on Friday. So she'll be a new face that you'll see around here. We are finalizing our hiring offers for a couple of senior planner positions. And so I'm hoping within the next meeting or two, I'll be able to announce those new staff for you. We are finalizing as well. We have an intern who works for us, and we're finalizing her hiring. I'm not prepared to formally announce that, but it's in the works to hire her as a junior planner. And then one other thing that I'm really pleased to announce, a staff person that you are familiar with, Maylee Sheehan, she's a senior planner. She is being promoted to principal planner, so she's moving up to the next level, and she will be overseeing our development review staff. So I'll still be here running the planning commission meetings, but it'll take some off of my plate and having to navigate putting a lot of the conditions of approval together, things like that, and overseeing all the development entitlement. Maylee will have the frontline responsibility for that. And so you'll be seeing her a lot more in these meetings. I think you already see her quite a bit, but we're really pleased to be able to offer her that promotion. Let's see, the last thing I want to announce, just keep you in the loop that we do have an item tracking for the next meeting. It is the item that we continued. And then it looks like we've got an item for the meeting after that. At least we'll probably have a few other items in February for you. So we'll be meeting fairly regularly over the next few weeks.
Very good. I just want to make two quick comments. First of all, Commissioner Werblin and I represent the Planning Commission on the HUD block grant program. And there are meetings that have reinitiated on that. Will be coming up with a grading of, what was it, Tina, about 14 different nonprofit.
I think around 14 nonprofit, the Community Development Block Grant Commission.
Yeah, thank you. So that will be coming out in the next month or so. And we'll give reports about that going forward. One other request that I'd like to make of staff for a future meeting, not urgent, but we're hearing a lot of, especially Habitat for Humanity in two different locations, actually outside of the state of California, have completed 3D printing of homes. And I would just like to understand if, as a planning commission, we have any guidelines as it relates to that going forward. And frankly, those are the sorts of things that I would like to see us as a commission, if we're supportive, help advocate with developers and make it more feasible. So whether or not it's cost effective, whether or not there are structural or other issues related to that, I just think at some future meeting, it would be a good topic for us to have a briefing from staff about what's going on in other communities and whether or not we think it's appropriate to deal with in Fairfield.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. We can do a little bit of research, reach out to our chief building official, because there's clearly structural and construction issues with that, as well as our local Habitat for Humanity. I'm familiar with their staff, get some input from them, and happy to report back on that, or even bring in a few speakers who might be able to opine on some of those matters for you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other reports or questions or requests? If not, I believe we will stand adjourned to the next meeting of January 26, 2021.